Hi, I'm Sam Norman and you're watching Book Zone, and I'm going to be speaking to Richard van Emden, who's the author of The Last Fighting Tommy, which is published by Bloomsbury. Richard, you actually wrote this book with the help of The Last Fighting Tommy, Harry Patch, who is now how old?
He'll be 110 this coming June, so and he's remarkably fit and well. Yes, I wrote this over the summer of 2006, and just went down to his place in Somerset, and we just spent the afternoons just talking. I'd left a little digi recorder and put the story together. But so it's entirely with his sort of help and cooperation and his fantastic memory. It really is remarkable what he can remember over well. I mean, his memory goes back to about 1903, I suppose, 1902.
Wow. How did you get in touch with him in the first place?
I found him from a little newspaper cutting just after his 100th birthday. He was sort of, happy birthday, Harry Patch, you're 100. And I just saw this and I rang up the home and I just said, did he serve in the Great War? And they said yes. And I said, would he be willing to talk about it? And they came back and said yes. So I drove down to see him. But I didn't realise at that time he'd never, ever spoken about it. So 80 years of anger, in a way, had been built up inside him because he'd never spoken about it to even his wife. And he'd wanted to forget it. So I was very intrigued afterwards as to why he'd spoken to me, and he just said, well, he said, why not? Why not? And I think with some of these veterans it gets to sort of 1 minute to 12 in their lives, although Harry's case has gone on for another 10 years at least. But I think he felt, if I don't say now, I never will. And actually it's been incredibly cathartic for him.
Has it?
Yeah, it's like a monkey off his back. It's the difference between the interview when I first met him and the interviews I do with him now are totally different. And when he meets other people and he talks about the Great War, it's almost autopilot now because he's spoken it out now. He's got rid of all that anger that was there, and he's just a really happy man now.
Why is it? I mean, that was a real syndrome of that war, wasn't it? That people, would fight and they'd come back and then they'd never speak about it again. They'd bottle everything up. Why was that, do you think?
Well, some men spoke about it, some didn't. As in all wars, that's the case. I think there was a feeling that everybody had gone through it, so why is my story any bigger than anybody else's? Why should I sit there and go, well, I was in the trenches and I did this and that? And that's the problem for so many years. All their work colleagues had served, or many of their work colleagues had served, their friends, their neighbours had served, and so they felt that they should be, they should have the sort of stiff upper lip and not brag or go on about their war, because there were other men who often walked down the street, one leg missing, an arm missing, thousands in hospitals, long-term mental institutions, and I think they just felt, who am I to say? And it was only when the numbers started to shrink, and I would say probably in the late 80s, early 90s, that people really started to turn on to the Great War.
Is this a biography?
It is a biography. I mean, the great thing was that I'd spoken to Harry about his war on many occasions, and this was really an opportunity to expand on that, to actually go back as far as I possibly could in his life, right through to the present day. And it was really fascinating because so often you get hung up on these guys' wars, and Harry said himself, I was there for 4 months. Everyone wants to know what I did for 4 months, but they're not interested in what I did for the rest of my life. Well, people are interested in what he did in the rest of his life, because he's one of the few people now who can remember his sort of Edwardian childhood and growing up in Somerset and the country life they lived then. And of course he remembered great events, the sort of sinking of the Titanic and things like that. But he just encompasses an entire century, and there's so few people who can remember that. And he's so eloquent and so interesting that it was just a pleasure to explore areas of life other than the Great War. Of course, the Great War is a focal point in the book as well, but it puts it into context, and I think that's what makes this book so different.
Great stroke of luck finding somebody like that, wasn't it?
It was a great stroke of luck finding Harry. Of course, he's the last man who served in the trenches, and so that makes him in a way more marketable. I don't wish to make that sound awful, but he was one of many veterans at one point, but he's now become the last veteran. He's got these incredible memories. I mean, the last veteran could have been senile. It's just turned out to be Harry, who's got this amazingly cogent mind. And so it makes him an absolutely fascinating interviewee, going back over that time in history, which is now all but forgotten.
Well, best of luck with The Last Fighting Tommy.
Thank you.
I look forward to many more. I was talking to Richard van Emden, who's the author of The Last Fighting Tommy, which is published by Bloomsbury.